Hello and welcome. I'm Guillermo Vidal, your host for this program titled Aging Fearlessly. Now today, I wish to share what I believe is the best way to fulfill the purpose we were given at birth. And that is by helping to create a greater good for all. Now this means you try to make things better by thinking and acting beyond your own interests and focusing on the interests of your community, your country, and the world. Now for me, I gotta add, a greater good knows no borders and transcends genders, races, religions, and cultural traditions. A greater good has a place for everyone, no matter who they are. But I know this is a picture of a greater good on a very large scale, and most of us, well, we just simply don't make decisions at that level. So for the common individual, like us, we must create this greater good by measuring the possible impacts our personal decisions can have in improving not only our own lives, but also the lives of those who work, live, raise families, etc., who are all around us. Now, I told you this before. I was fortunate enough to serve as a public servant for more than 40 years. And from my experience, I learned that the best government and public officials do everything in their power to create a cohesive, inclusive society that cares about all of its people. Now, I learned this lesson many times over, but one in particular stands out in my mind when I speak to this today, and one that was taught to me by a poor young single mother who approached me on the day that I was sworn in as mayor of Denver. Now, I got to tell you about this day. It was a wonderful and celebratory day in my career, a day where I was to take my oath of office, followed by a speech about all of the wonderful things I was going to do for the city of Denver. Now, several thousand people came to witness pretty much a typical ceremony of several invocations by local ministers, introduction of the important political attendees, my swearing in, concluding with my acceptance speech. And everything, and I mean everything, was as planned. And I was surprised when at the conclusion of my speech, the crowd gave me a standing ovation that lasted several minutes. Now I know this all seems pretty standard fare. It's kind of what everybody does at these events. But soon after a large line of people gathered to shake my hand, take my pictures, or offer good wishes. It was great. I was full of myself as I traversed the crowd of well-wishers when the aforementioned young single mother grabbed me by the hand and said, "Mayor Vidal, can you help me? For the 5th time this month, I've come to the Department of Social Services to find out what is happening with my application for food stamps. And once again, I was told that my application had not been processed yet." Now, I was somewhat annoyed by her intrusion to my crowning moment in the sun, and I condescendingly put my hand on her shoulder and told her she would need to be patient. There are thousands of applications submitted and only so many people that can handle them. You will get it when the right time comes. Now, after hearing my reply, I could see on her face that I did not grasp the seriousness of her situation. "You don't understand, sir. I am desperate. I've been trying to get food stamps for the last 6 months, and I still don't have anything. What am I supposed to do? My kids are hungry now. I'm a single mother. I work at Walmart and McDonald's, but I barely make enough money to pay the bills and the rent." And then with tears bubbling from her eyes, she pleaded, "I need the food stamps to feed my babies, but I can't get them. What am I supposed to do? A friend told me I would make good money as a prostitute." And then she hesitated for a minute, looks at me and says, "Do you think I should do that? I'm thinking about it, for I don't know what else to do. Please help me." She gave me one last look and then walked away. Now for me, I could not take my eyes off of her until she walked out of the building. And I had made a lot of promises during my speech that day about balancing the budget, addressing police violence, creating a full-stream recycling program. But none of these things seemed as urgent to me as the need to help this young woman get her food stamps. It simply seemed a matter of life and death, and I felt the spirit of compassion move in me to help her. Now, maybe some of you are thinking I should have scolded her for being too promiscuous and careless to have 3 children at such a young age. Or maybe I should have reprimanded her for not doing well in school and not pursuing a better education. Maybe I should have reminded her that poor people in other countries, they get nothing, and she should consider herself lucky that she can get food stamps at all, even if it takes 6 months. But I didn't do that. I'm just not so cynical as to believe that the majority of people who apply for help are lazy and careless and are just simply trying to cheat the system. We simply don't know why people in need got to where they are. We don't know why the decorated war veteran is now homeless. We don't understand why the poor young person can't hold a job because of their addiction to opioids. And when it came to this woman, perhaps, she had been raped by a family member, or she lived in a home with drug-addicted parents, and she had no time to study because she had to raise her siblings. Now, I believe when we are called upon to help those in need, we are wrong to pass judgment on them for their condition. Plain and simple. Now, hearing from this young woman reminded me of the rough times my parents, brothers, and I endured through a decade and a half of poverty. These were times that, in spite of our best efforts, I got to tell you, there was no way my mom and dad could guarantee that we would have food on the table or a roof over our heads. And I also remember what it meant to have someone throw you a bone of help now and again. So I chose to help her, for it was now my turn to help people who were in a weaker position than me. Now, within the hour of the encounter, I met with the director of the Department of Social Services to find the root of the problem. And I soon discovered that this was more serious than what had befallen this individual. For one reason after another, you name it, you know what those are: outdated software, lack of staff, or poor training. Everyone applying for food stamps in Denver was having to wait for a minimum of 6 months to get food. Now imagine that. Life has led you to a point where you have no choice but to turn to the government to help get food to feed yourself and your family. And then you're told that it will take at least 6 months before you receive the help. Now, I gotta say, I was not much of a Bible scholar when I was being taught by priests and nuns how to be a good Catholic. But boy, it didn't take a Bible genius to see that those Denver citizens waiting to receive their food stamps were the least of our brothers and sisters the Bible talks about. And I was being called to help them. Now, my tenure as Denver mayor was a very short one, less than 1 year. And although I was able to accomplish many of the things I spoke about, frankly, in my inaugural speech, in Denver history books, my tenure as mayor would just be a footnote. But when my last day in office came and I got the final report that the wait time for eligible applicants to get their food stamps was now 3 days instead of 6 months, my heart was at peace. I knew then that this had been the main reason why the higher consciousness that created us all had led me on this improbable road to be Denver's mayor at the time that it did. So let me close my story with this. Maybe we only have one life to lead, or maybe we have more. But since all we can do is know this life, then we must make it count for something now. And the best way to do this is to help create a greater good. So as former President Jimmy Carter once said, demand of yourself to do whatever you can, wherever you are, whenever you can, for as long as you can, with whatever you have, to try and make a difference. And this is how you fulfill the purpose of your life. Thank you for tuning in today.